Hi everyone, my name is Brianna Figley. I chose to talk about human relationships and their effects on wildlife, the habitats, and the environment. I really wanted to choose something for this project that I felt more of a personal connection to and kind of related to what I would like to get involved in with my career goals, which I really want to focus my career on wildlife preservation and sustainability. So I thought this topic would make the most sense for me to cover. So just to go over my agenda really quick, I'm going to talk about obviously the problem that I'm addressing, the relevant cases that I found, any ethical ramifications that I think apply, relevant policies and laws that I found that apply to this problem, ethical approaches that I think would help solve the problem, and then my recommendation to improve an existing policy, and then that will conclude my presentation. So the problem that I'm addressing here in my paper are the challenges to natural resource sustainability for specific wildlife or environments. And I'm primarily going to focus on human relationships with the environment and how they affect wildlife populations, their habitats, and then, of course, the environment as a whole. So I'm going to start with the case examples that I found that I think are relevant to this issue. The first one, which we've of course learned about during this course, was AgroFrontera's involvement with the Monte Cristi National Park. So AgroFrontera focused on improving sustainability for this community by helping them improve their fishing and farming techniques. They really got the community involved to help their environment as well as the economy, and they did so by managing the human relationship with that environment and giving them the proper guidance that they needed to be able to improve their crop production and restore their fish populations, which of course benefit both the community and the environment. The next case that I found that was applicable was the wolf conservation project in Yellowstone National Park, which we also learned about in this course. This case really focused on efforts to understand the ethical consequences of disrupting the wolf populations through management and control programs when they reintroduced these populations to the park. So a lot of the issues came from human values, attitudes, and beliefs, which played obviously a heavy role in this restoration project. And it really lacked careful consideration of the effects that these actions had on the wolves themselves and not just the people involved, and also the integrity of the entire ecosystem that these wolves were a part of or are a part of. And the ethical questions that rose from this issue really had to do with balancing that human interference with public safety. So there were a lot of concerns with the safety of livestock and pets and just people in general by reintroducing these wolf populations into the parks. So a lot of educational resources had to be made during this process to make sure that these human and wildlife interactions were being done in a positive and safe way for both the wolf population and the human population. So now we'll go into the ethical ramifications that have to do with this problem, specifically covering natural resource consumption, overpopulation, and human-wildlife conflict. So in my opinion, overpopulation and overconsumption of natural resources obviously go hand in hand. The more people that there are living in one area, the more resources they're going to use, and without sustaining those natural resources and renewing them, humans are going to continue to diminish these ecosystems and have negative effects on the environment. So one of the readings that we talked about in the course, titled Tilting at Wildlife, Reconsidering Human-Wildlife Conflict, covered how interactions between humans and wildlife can have adverse effects on one another. And I think this really plays into the problem as a whole and how the sustainability programs and management programs have to carefully balance these interactions between humans and wildlife to ensure that the sustainability methods are ethical. So there were a few existing laws that I found relevant to this case. The first one being the Endangered Species Act of 1973, which, as you guys know, protects animal and plant species that are either endangered or threatened and helps to encourage human interaction in a positive way by preserving and protecting these ecosystems and the wildlife. The next one that I'll discuss in my paper is the Clean Water Act, which focuses on protecting water ecosystems in all bodies of water, so oceans, lakes, all of that. And not only does it help ensure safe drinking water for people, which increases the agricultural benefits for the human populations, but it also provides healthy habitats for the wildlife and plants that are in that area. So it emphasizes human efforts to protect these natural resources by getting involved in responsible ways, such as things like controlling pollution. And then the last act that I'll cover is the Wilderness Act of 1964, which helps mitigate the effects of overpopulation by protecting wild lands. And it provides protection and preservation of designated wild areas to preserve natural resources, which I think further promotes a positive relationship between the human population and their effects on the environment. So the ethical approaches that I'm going to cover in this final paper, there were 4 of them that I found that I thought were relevant. The first one is going to be the 3 E's. So the first of the 3 E's is environment, and then we have equity and economy. And I think that all 3 of these approaches are relevant because they focus on mutually beneficial relationships between humans and the environment and creating those equal opportunities for communities to create sustainable futures. And then the next one I want to cover is ecological sustainability, which focuses on conservation, preservation, and the evolutionary land ethic. So it promotes preservation through responsible use of natural resources and pushes to maintain wild areas with as little human interaction as possible. And then I also threw care ethics in here because I personally believe that care ethics play a role in any sustainability efforts, because if people don't care about their effects on the environment, they're not going to do anything to help it. And then the last one is the tech approach. So the traditional ecological knowledge approach builds that cultural practice of respect between humans and the environment that is passed down to generations, and it really focuses on that strong community knowledge about, understanding their interactions with wildlife and those sustainable harvesting, resource monitoring efforts that keep those ecosystems healthy. All right, and then finally, I had a recommendation for a policy improvement, and the policy that I wanted to kind of improve upon a little bit was the Wilderness Act. I think that protecting these wilderness areas that are already untouched is obviously important to promoting sustainability, but my improvement recommendation was to include responses to areas of ecosystems that are currently being affected negatively and create more of an effort to restore those areas instead of just focusing on areas that are already untouched. So I think the ecological sustainability ethics method is applicable here because it helps to restore a responsible use of natural resources and maintaining wilderness areas to be as free of human influence as possible. So in conclusion, I think that using these ethical approaches and revamping some of the existing policies that have to do with how humans interact with the environment could really help improve these challenges to help control natural resources and sustainability, and how we as humans can better understand the effects that we have on wildlife and their habitats and the environment. My references are on the last 2 pages of my presentation, here and here. So thank you so much to everyone who listened to this. I'm open to any recommendations or feedback that you guys might have. I hope you have a great rest of your semester and good luck on your final projects. Thank you.